What's up, guys? Here, Thomas Mott alongside Josh Davis. Breaking Philadelphia Eagles news. This is as of Adam Schefter less than 2 minutes ago. The Philadelphia Eagles have officially brought back CJ Gardner-Johnson to Philadelphia on a 3-year deal. Josh, let's get the information up as people are starting to join. Here we go. It is officially happening here. There it is. Adam Schefter. This is coming literally 3 minutes ago. The Eagles are signing safety nickel cornerback CJ Gardner-Johnson to a 3-year deal worth up to $33 million max. His agents, Kevin Connor, Robert Brown, confirmed the deal back to Philadelphia, and CJ Gardner-Johnson threw a tweet out a couple of minutes ago saying, flying home with the Eagles emoji, and he sure is, Josh. CJ Gardner-Johnson back in Philadelphia. The Eagles get their safety, and it's the one a lot of us wanted but didn't think this would ever actually happen.
No, I did not. And again, if you haven't already, hit that like button. Come on. We got CJ Gardner-Johnson, and the number of people that said that we were not going to be able to get him, I'm not going to lie, I was one of those that kind of didn't think it was going to be possible. But still, we got CJ Gardner-Johnson. And to your point, there was a Xavier McKinney, which would have been great. But as crazy as it is, I mean, you return CJ Gardner-Johnson with the breakup and kind of crazy, weird, terrible way that he left Philly and all the other stuff that he said. But, we all say things in the heat of the moment, right? So, we can forgive him for the things that he said and whatever. But you got your safety. And to your point, that is the biggest win. Again, I mean, you look at the deal too, the 3 years, 11 million. It's not bad. It's really not. And so you're talking about also the cap space that you still have from this deal. But I think ultimately what this comes down to, and we've mentioned it a number of different times, we're starting to get, even just with this one signing here, but you start to feel a little bit more of an identity shift, right? Like CJ Gardner-Johnson's the dude who ain't going to put up with anything at the Niners game, right? Like when James Bradbury's getting shoved, CJ's going to be right in their face. And that's what you want. Like we were talking about, where's the identity? Where's the swag, the personality? Now, sometimes you get in trouble with that regardless of who the player is. Sure. But I would rather be on that side than what we were previously. So I'm all for this. This is incredible. You have Reed Blankenship now who, question of where he might be. But, again, we've got a Sidney Brown situation where he's not going to be available until October. There's probably still some more depth coming. But Again, I mean, I was literally running from the park. You're about to head out the door, but here we are breaking the news because it happens all over the place. And we've got CJ Gardner-Johnson. It's crazy.
Absolutely unbelievable. You see his tweet here. He says, flying home with the Eagles emoji. Again, that was about 6 minutes ago. And so obviously we're live right now. Hit the thumbs up button, breaking this down. This is exactly what every single Eagle fan had been hoping and praying for post Saquon Barkley. Let's just be real. Anybody who was a little bit hesitant on giving Saquon Barkley $15 million a year, the argument was either he's a little bit banged up or you need help in the secondary. The defense has gotten torched in the secondary. They got to get a safety. When are they going to get a safety? And yet, here we go. Now you have Saquon Barkley. You have Bryce Huff, probably the best young pass rusher overall. Young being the emphasis there because Danielle Hunter was a free agent. But still, young pass rusher in free agency. And now, one of the better safeties. There was a bunch of them. Maybe not as good as Xavier McKinney. Maybe not as established as Justin Simmons. More on that in a second. But now you get CJ Gardner-Johnson back like he never should have left. And the Eagles secondary, like you just mentioned, we get a lot more swagger back there. And just putting CJ Gardner-Johnson on the currently constructed Eagle defense pre-draft, they are already leagues better than where they were last year.
It's phenomenal. It's drastically different. Like you say, there's still holes, we can get into those, and we'll be covering it, all throughout free agency because Howie's not done. That's the beauty of it, right? Like he's made this move here, but there's still some other potentials. Now, will it be a bigger name signing? That remains to be seen, I guess, but you're working with the cap space and the refinements of that. But still, I think that it's the proof of you saw where the main targets were. Obviously, you go out and get your running back with Saquon Barkley, but you could tell right away, oh, hey, there's rumor reports of Xavier McKinney. Okay, safety is a priority. Howie Roseman figured out that he missed there all the way back to last offseason, tried to, stop gap with Kevin Byard. That didn't work out. Granted, defensive coordinators and everything was atrocious anyway, but still, he saw this is not going to work. I got to go out and get my guy. And, ultimately, again, I mean, CJ Gardner-Johnson kind of betting on himself in a way because we both looked at each other like, wait, what contract did he take with the Lions before? And, then it's like, okay, well, he wasn't offering the best either. But I think it works out for both parties, honestly. Like, it's good for the Eagles, but you get a 3-year deal for CJ Gardner-Johnson. Mm-hmm. He's able to come back to Philly. I guess Slay's right here tweeting too, welcome back, time to get to work. So, he knows some guys. They like playing with CJ Gardner-Johnson. And again, I say, I mean, honestly, the first thing that I think of every time that I CJ Gardner-Johnson anyway, just the last memory, I suppose, or one of the last, but the Super Bowl hit that he laid on Pacheco. I mean, it's like, okay, I want the enforcer, like show up there, bring the swag. He obviously is a ball hawk. Sometimes, I even saw some, like, I don't know, a little bit arguments or saying, oh, it's inflated numbers or whatever. But like, you got to be in the right position to be a safety,
You
right?
have
Like
to.
interceptions, some guys get them and some guys don't. And CJ Gardner-Johnson is just about always in the right spot, even if it's a tipped ball or whatever. So I love this. Should be great in terms of the turnover battle. And like you mentioned too, just having some more physicality and intensity. This is awesome. I mean, this is so exciting. We're 2 days in. It's crazy because of the timing and all of this and everything, but I don't know. It's Fangio's got a guy that he could work with here. You got some versatility. It'll be interesting too, because we've seen CJ play in the slot. Not that he's like probably your full-time slot answer, but he has that hybrid ability. So, if you were to say, hey, let's put him in there a little bit because Avonte Maddox is gone. I think it's a win from all sides. I don't think there's a way you could knock this, honestly.
It's absolutely fantastic, and I agree with everything that you just said. If you're just joining us here, we got 2,700 people watching. Hit the thumbs up button, hit the sub button if you're new to the Eagles channels here. We have, obviously, the signing. 33-year, $33 million. That's max value. So $11 million a year is probably a little bit light in terms of, or a little bit heavy in terms of what it actually is. We talk about incentives and everything else. This is a massive, massive move for an Eagles defense that was desperate to get some secondary help, and apparently there are some reports out there saying they might not be done. There are some people... Again, some people have been somewhat accurate during free agency, somewhat not accurate during free agency, saying that Justin Simmons is still on the board. The Eagles could get 2 safeties, which could happen later on tonight. That would be massive. Let's get to some super chats here. How about LaTerrence Perry? $20 chat saying, let's go! Fly Eagles, fly, baby. Welcome back, CJ Gardner-Johnson. EAGLES. That's what this is going to be a universally loved signing, I think. This will be a universally loved signing. Saquon was probably 80-20, I would say, in terms of love and not love. This is going to be universal. With Alexander Harris with a 5 saying, any way to tell what money we got left? Need Devontae extension still. And Hassan, please. Howie, I love you. GOAT stuff. Also looks like we're drafting linebacker. I agree. We don't know how much money Philadelphia has left because, again, we don't know the details of these contracts. It's not like it's a guaranteed, $11 million this season. How much is the cap hit going to be? They still have ammo. My guess was after the Barkley and Huff signing, they still had about $31 million in cap space. This puts them somewhere in the 20s. They still have $20+ million in cap space to be able to go ahead and spend. Lock Dapper says, hell yeah, wait for this move. Hashtag CJ Gardner-Johnson. And Jimmy John Joker, he dropped a super chat but didn't say anything. So if you want to say something, drop a super chat. You'll get thrown up there on the screens. We welcome in people who are joining us. Hit the thumbs up button. We're at 500 likes for 3,000 people watching. Green Wingman, welcome back to CJ Gardner-Johnson. Him and Cindy Brown together. Dogs in the making. Now get this man a new Kia Sport. That's right, because somebody in Philadelphia stole his other one. So I think he's going to have the money to get something a little bit nicer as well in terms of what is going on. If you haven't seen it, though, welcome back, CJ Gardner-Johnson, the Philadelphia Eagles. I think this does basically guarantee, because they missed out on all the linebackers. Patrick Queen, Josie Jewell, like all the linebackers are gone. Linebacker early in the draft, corner probably earlier in the draft as well. That seems like an almost lock with their first 2 picks, and I think most people would agree with that.
Yeah, I agree. And honestly, I mean, there's a lot of different ways you could go with. We talked about it, the number of draft selections that you could go with of Peyton Wilson, Edgerrin Cooper, even waiting later, right? I mean, just get kind of more of a mid-tier. And it's not super surprising. I will say, and I totally understand some people that are, like slightly concerned in that route because you're resting or relying quite a bit on Nakobe Dean, but it's not surprising from a Howie Roseman standpoint because he said a number of times, like, we believe in Nakobe Dean. He's our guy. He's the green dot wearer, like all these other things. So, hey, you're going to have to figure something out. He's not done signing people. There's going to be more depth. It's just a question of, like to what extent or what magnitude. But yes, as far as the CJ Gardner-Johnson signing here, I think it's phenomenal. Shout out to Fitness Warrior here, says, do you think Fangio wanted CJGJ? I do. Like, you're, as a GM, especially a caliber of Howie Roseman, you're not going out there and getting a dude who's like, I'm 50-50. Like, he could be good, but he's not. Like, Howie's going to have all these conversations beforehand and say, hey, here's our options. And I'm sure that they went through plan A, B, C, D, E, all the way through the list of free agents. And who knows? Maybe Justin Simmons was a little bit higher in Fangio's mind, but ultimately, you're not signing a guy, especially of this caliber. And, we'll see what the official contract details are, but 11-ish million to be like, DC was okay with it, but it's not a preference there. I think that CJ Gardner-Johnson was probably, 2 or 3 on the board. Honestly, it's pretty clear if you're going to spend or willing to spend for Xavier McKinney that he was number 1, but CJ Gardner-Johnson could not have been that much lower. So you get a deal done, second day of free agency.
Well, and Xavier McKinney was $17-18 million a year. Maximum, you're looking at 11. I mean, that's a really, really big drop off from the top safety in the free agent class. And remember, the whole thing that happened at the end of the CJ Gardner-Johnson tenure in 2022 was that he wanted a 3-year deal, and he wanted north of $14 million. He wanted to be one of the highest paid safeties. And after what was a prove-it deal with Detroit and somewhat of a lackluster season, he got injured. I mean, it wasn't necessarily a full 17-game slate. He had to come back at a cheaper price. And in the end, Philly wins. As long as he plays as well as we know he can, Philly definitely has won the whole CJ Gardner-Johnson going to Detroit saga. I mean, 100% the front office and Howie got this one right, waiting the extra year, and they get him in the end, and that's absolutely massive. As you see Jair say, anything that doesn't like this is delusional. Who cares what he said before? I love the emotion, makes him a passionate leader. We always have had, for the good Eagle teams, passionate safety leaders. Brian Dawkins, obviously Malcolm Jenkins. We haven't had that, and that's no offense to the Ghost or no offense to young Sidney Brown. Maybe they'll eventually get there, and what a better player to learn underneath than Gardner-Johnson. But this is a whole different ball game for Philadelphia, which again, the one big rip this entire offseason has been if they don't improve the secondary, it doesn't matter how many points Saquon Barkley scores. 45 because you're going to give up 50. It's not solved by one player. You still got to figure out Josh Sweat. You still got to figure out Hassan Reddick. But you have 9 draft picks, probably more once you get rid of either Sweat or obviously Hassan Reddick. It's going to be a crazy, crazy, crazy next couple of months. And if you're new to the channel, you haven't subscribed yet, hit that sub button, thumbs up as well, as we got a lot of chats that are coming in. Des Morris says, time to get a Gardner-Johnson jersey. Probably give one of those away at some point here on the channel. We like to do that sort of thing. Tim says, welcome home, CJ. Simmons next. It's been a draft night with all these signings. It's felt like it. There are reports. Now, they're not from reputable sources, but they're from some of the Twitter reporters out there, which take that as you will, who are saying the Eagles are not done and that Justin Simmons could be an option. One indicator is that the Eagles listed him, that is CJ Gardner-Johnson, as a nickel/safety. And so, could make Justin Simmons more of the all-time safety, whereas Gardner-Johnson plays in the box, plays nickel, plays safety. There are some options there. We're running through some super chats here. You got Jimmy. He says, we're definitely going back to the Super Bowl. It's how he sees and let him cook. He's cooking. I mean, the Eagles have had good off seasons, Josh. This feels like one of the best. One of the best. Without seeing people play a single down, it feels like one of the best.
Without trying to be too overreactionary 2 days in. It feels pretty good. We're starting out pretty positive. I will say that with you. Shout out to Unk Silly 62. Shout out to them for being a member of the Let's Run It tier. So appreciate that. Ultimately, this is wild to be saying this, because for people that have not been following or just kind of checking us out now, like, we're going to be live during draft night. So it feels like draft night. It'll feel like this, maybe even crazier on draft night. We'll be covering it. But you and I, like, one of the first lives that we did was CJ Gardner-Johnson leaving. Like, we were in, it was super late. March Madness was going on. All of a sudden it's like, hey, did you just see the news? Like, yeah, all right, let's jump on and go live. So it's a weird, like, coming full circle moment, honestly, like seeing that, okay, now CJ Gardner-Johnson is coming back. And again, I like the versatility. You mentioned it there with Fangio. If Howie goes out and all of a sudden we say, like, hey,
he gets Justin Simmons
is also coming.
Holy cow.
What in the world? It'd be phenomenal. But, like, oh my gosh.
Crazy. That would be absolutely huge. You see Daquan Barkley here. I love the little Twitter picture there. Wowie Goatsman putting in the work. LFG. Omar dropping one here. I'm trying to get to as many as I possibly can. People are joining us. 3,500 people watching right now. Let's see if I can get this a little bit bigger. Big fan of the show, guys. Thanks for keeping us up to date. You're welcome. We tell you guys, first live. We're live by far, making sure you guys are up to date. That's why you always turn on the notification bell as well, especially this week, because this is the week to have it on. Akon22 put Gardner-Johnson at nickel, cut Bradbury, signed Simmons for your safety. All of that could be true. Although, Josh, can I be a little bit crazy here and say that what if James Bradbury isn't as bad as he was this past year if he has 2 competent safeties behind him? Just a thought.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the best case scenario. It's not guaranteed, but it's a thought, right?
He can't be worse. So I get, I'll agree with you there. It can't be worse than that. But yeah, it's a lot to say. However, I mean, again, I'll give it to you. If you have the safety blanket behind you, you can either take some chances more, or you have more confidence because you're like, hey, I know so-and-so's got my back there. But I don't know. I mean, did you get to Akon? Yeah, the Akon super chat. Put Gardner-Johnson, the nickel, cut Bradbury. Yeah, sign Simmons for your safety. That's and Josie and Anderson literally just tweeted, said Eagles still on the market, on the hunt for a linebacker one way or another. So that's,
let me get that one up.
Linebacker also, we talk about going through the draft, but Howie's not done.
How? Is that a trade? How
I
exactly
don't
would
know.
that work? All right, I'm throwing it up on the screen.
Because that's
the
what I'm wondering.
update.
Like, think about this here, right? Like, we've already made these moves, but Josh Sweat, and we love him. We love him to death. Josh Sweat and Hassan Reddick. But most likely one of them, like I'm going to say 99.9% chance that at least one of them is not going to be here.
Minimum.
So where's the compensation coming for? It may not be a ton. We've already talked about that. The compensation, the market, the way it is, it may not be insane what you get returned. But even if it's draft pick, that's cool. But if not, you parlay it into a potential player. Like, is someone out there that you go, hey, maybe that'd be a trade you might make. But he's done these moves here before doing that. And so this is another thing to keep an eye on, as we will, as soon as, we have any official trades or compensation there. But it could be a busy night. We might need to buckle up and get ready for another late one.
Let's just read this Josina Anderson, and then I'll get to the super chat. So obviously, Eagles still in the market on the hunt for a linebacker. Now, that's interesting. There are not a lot of big-name linebackers left available. Then she says, one way or another. That tells you that they are open to trading for a linebacker. Now, the question is, which linebackers are available for a trade? Like, who's been rumored to be on the trade market? I can't think of one that's been rumored to be traded, because we talked about safeties you could trade for. Buda Baker is a name that pops up, jumps up to the board. Patrick Surtain, even though, Albert or Benjamin Albright, swears they're not going to trade Patrick Surtain. But in terms of trade pieces, I don't know what you think about in terms of linebacker. I think you'll probably Google that for me right now. I'm going to read some super chats, but very, very interesting. Let's go ahead and get to a super chat here from Young Truth. He says, I told y'all CJ Gardner-Johnson was coming back. And I guess that you were absolutely right, as I try and make it fit on the screen, because it doesn't want to fit on the screen here.
I didn't believe it. I'll just fess up and say it. I really didn't. I was like, nah, the way that ended and everything else. I thought Howie was just out saying like, nah, I don't really care as much for the player. But obviously I was wrong. So kudos to you. Shout out there.
Yeah, a lot of people in the comment section were able to get this one right. James Carver said, could you see Rackstraw Jr. drafted? I think that's how you say his name. I'm not familiar with that one. In the third, safety, nickel slot until refined mechanics, but given IQ physicality. Then Kool-Aid as cornerback in round 2. I don't know if Kool-Aid falls to round 2, but the Eagles did have a combine and a Senior Bowl meeting with him. So they are very interested in the ability to get him. Jeremy dropping a 5. Appreciate it, Jeremy. You can say something in the chat. That way you can get your comment up on the screen. It's the way to do it. Albert Pastrana, Howie. Wow, sign Reddick, Sweat, Simmons, 49ers, here we come. We got to emphasize, Josh just said it, 99% chance they are both not coming back, Sweat and Reddick. One is going to go. It's probably going to be Josh Sweat. But, there's still money to be had. This Gardner-Johnson deal, we'll get back to the actual numbers here in a second. It's not as much money as most of us would have thought it would be at the beginning of free agency.
No.
Any chance the Eagles go after Devin White? There's a chance it would be very interesting to see what the cost would be to get Devin White. Very interesting in the cost.
That's true.
What is it?
I was going to say, too, just back to James' comment about Rackstraw Jr., like, Anthony DeBona loves him to death, like just being a dog and like just straight up gamer. So I think there's a possibility. I don't know necessarily you're going to be drafting him that late, like you mentioned, even with Kool-Aid in round 2. But still, like, I love the route of going corner in the draft. But I'm Googling here. I'm looking through, like, let us know. We're going to try to get to all these comments. But if you have an idea of who it would be for a trade, shout it out,
Simmons
because
is off the board. He's a Titan, according to Diana Rossini. So there goes Justin Simmons.
Well, that dream is
okay.
It makes sense because if there was a battle perhaps for CJ Gardner-Johnson, but
that seems to be the case. I'll have that tweet up for us in a second. But as things are fluid here, hit that thumbs up button as you see Diana Rossini here telling us the Tennessee Titans are targeting, and that basically means signing, all-pro safety Justin Simmons. Tennessee was hoping to get a shot at CJ Gardner-Johnson, but Philly scooped him up. So obviously being 26 versus 31 is a big factor. Age-wise.
Do they, I guess it's not officially official. Is Howie swoop in there and steal Justin Simmons also?
Yeah, maybe.
I don't think it's as likely, but given the fact that it's not official, it's Titans are targeting Justin Simmons.
I guess so. I think I got Dove Kleiman saying that it was official, but targeting is the proper word there. So that is good news. We'll keep an eye on that as well. There was also reports that they were looking at JariusSneed. Let's get to some super chats here. Hustle React says, what does that mean for extended Smitty? You can still extend him. They still have $20+ million. Like, you could very easily extend Devontae Smith. Devontae Smith is just waiting on other receivers to get their bag in order to kind of price out exactly how much he wants. It's kind of a game of chicken right now at the wide receiver market. So not necessarily a massive, bad thing that he's not extended yet. They will extend him. It's just not at the moment. JD Slat says, nice job, guys, giving the Birds good juju. Thanks for the updates. Linebacker round 1. Okay, I don't know if there's a first-round linebacker. I think there's a second-round linebacker, though.
I'm curious to see Peyton Wilson. I think he'd be the only one, but even that, like at 22, it'd almost be like you trade back in my mind. But I mean, honestly, I will be happy if we select a linebacker early. I don't know if
I agree
round 1, but if you trade back at your first selection, if that's even like early round 2, I'm going to be ecstatic about it.
I totally agree. We're getting a super chat from Kadarius Player. Didn't say anything, but we appreciate you dropping the 2. Jeremy Weaver, I love to sign Simmons too. Honestly, I have a 3 safety set with Gardner-Johnson in the slot. Simmons blank chest piece situation at safety. Howie Roseman clearly, during this free agency period, has decided to go for the exact weaknesses that he wanted to fill. He had money, 10th most in the National Football League, $44 million, and he said, we're going to make sure the running back spot is not just good, it's great. Straight Tony the Tiger reference there, but great. Obviously, the safety position was a massive, problem last year. They're going to get cornerbacks in the draft, and they got a pass rusher, knowing they're going to lose pass rushers, and then a couple of depth pieces as, pass rushing linebacker, potentially, and then, of course, at guard as well. But I agree. It doesn't seem like it's officially official that Simmons is going to be a Titan, but we're going to keep an eye on that and see if that happens while we are live. Jason Blessings, thank you, boys, keeping us Bird Gang notified. Well, hit the notification bell.
Jason.
That's the way to do it. Also, we got almost 4,000 people watching. If you are watching and you're not subscribed to the channel, go hit the red sub button down below because the Eagles are going to make more moves. And when they do, this is where you're going to find out about them. So hit that sub button right now. We would greatly appreciate it. And
while you're down there, just hit the like button in case you haven't already.
We're almost at 1,000 likes. 871.
We can get there. Come on, man.
Ravens, Birds, Bird Bowl 2025. How about Saquon versus Derrick Henry? That would be quite the running back matchup, I would say, in 2025. That'd be fun. I'd be all for it. I don't think anyone would disagree with that one, but I would be 100% for that.
Mr. Scorpio also, I was going to mention this, but he said, let's not forget we have Isaiah Rodgers tucked away. So that's true. A good point there of whether Isaiah Rodgers is going to be outside or if you move him to slot. He's more familiar with outside, but it's hit with his frame and his ability and everything else. I don't think it's impossible to say, hey, you do a hybrid mixture, especially again, like Jeremy's comment of signing Simmons. It's not impossible. It'd be kind of wild to me, but if Howie signs Justin Simmons, then you say, hey, we have CJ that can be that hybrid safety kind of slot. If you want to move him to the box a little bit, he could possibly do that too. But then Isaiah Rodgers slides into the slot and a lot of versatility. I mean, I love it because you have a lot of different playmakers there, but also you got guys who can create turnovers. And I mean, we saw from the number of live streams, how many was it in a row? Like 6 games or something? We're like, there's negative turnover differential again. We just can't do anything. So it's going to change it up drastically because these are ball hawks. I mean, these are guys that they create turnovers and they get interceptions.
All right, we're keeping an eye on maybe even Willie Gay's name was thrown out there as potential, but that's not necessarily reported by anyone. But that would be a Chiefs trade if you were to go ahead and do that one. So we're keeping an eye on a linebacker signing.
I don't know if we got Albert Pastrana's super chat here yet, but appreciate the 5. Said, how about Devin White, which we were talking about a second ago, but also Bobby Wagner for some senior leadership.
Wagner's interesting. He's just old. Like it's just old. The age is the fear there, and with Howie's signings, Bryce Huff under 26, CJ Gardner-Johnson is 26, Saquon Barkley is 26. They very clearly were going after young people who aren't over the age of 30. Now, if they get Justin Simmons now, that's fine because you got 3 young people before that. But still, I mean, this is a very clear momentum shift, and this was reported for weeks and weeks and weeks, saying basically that the Eagles were going to go with multi-year deals, heavily invested into the defense, and maybe make a splash at Saquon Barkley. And so far, it's all been true. I mean, it's 100% all been true.
Yeah. I understand the whole age part, but 30's not that old.
No.
I mean, come on.
No. It's not that
NFL
old.
age, I get it, but
NFL age, of course.
At 31, I'm kind of like, man, this is weird now. Everybody who's younger than me is being said they're too old. So
yeah.
But again, it is what it is. But yes, I think for me personally, like it could make some sense. Like Wagner has, I feel like, some left. But I also understand that Howie's definitely said it on many occasions, but most recently in the press conference, he's like, hey, we want to get younger, especially on the defensive side of the ball. So it seems less likely you would go that route. However, almost in the sense of like the whole quarterback theory and, you don't want to have too much of an intimidating QB2 for your first string quarterback, because you want them to feel like they're being groomed and everything else and not the competition there. It's almost in a way that I feel like Howie's viewing that for Nakobe Dean. Like as much as we may hate it, I'm kind of preparing myself that the only way that we, I guess, upgrade, for lack of a better term, I guess that's the right word, upgrade at linebacker is to go the draft. Because at least that way it's not like, hey, Jacoby, we're bringing in a guy who's a free agent signing, a bigger name, established name that is kind of coming in here to like own this thing. I feel like it'll just be maybe, but Josine Anderson said they're not done, so possibly different. I feel like it'd be more likely.
If they're not done, it's going to be very interesting to see exactly what that next move is going to be. And obviously, we get to a lot more comments here right now. If you're just joining us, CJ Gardner-Johnson officially back in Philadelphia on a 3-year deal, up to $33 million. I'm reading that it's a heavily incentive and game-based salary, meaning he's got to perform, which is what the Eagles tried to get him on, 2 off seasons ago. And that's kind of what we're looking for, is you get somebody who is going to be paid if they're productive and paid if they're healthy. And if you want to knock CJ Gardner-Johnson, I think that's probably the one knock, is he had the lacerated kidney, which is kind of a freak injury. It's not like he has, frail tendons or, a squeaky ACL that's going to pop at any time. It was more, kind of just a unlucky hit. But also, obviously, this past season with the Detroit Lions getting injured as well, that's probably been a little bit of an issue there. But I do think that besides that, I mean, if the guy's healthy, he's going to be a very, very solid player.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's definitely. I'm seeing also on just the Twitter reactions and stuff. It looks like at the Flyers game, somebody had a Saquon Barkley jersey on. That's
already
a homemade one, but
already
we're already getting ready for that.
Gotta have it.
But hey, good news for people that have CJ Gardner-Johnson. If you didn't burn it, I saw the overreactions whenever he was gone. But if you still have it, it applies. So you have CJ there. This is crazy though. Again, I'm just saying, like, the fact that you have these signings and didn't really expect it, especially of a CJ Gardner-Johnson returning to Philly.
Yeah.
And how he's not done. I mean, to me, you get a linebacker, you're going to go see the defense. I mean, he knows that he's not done on the defense. For people that were kind of freaking out of saying like, oh, we signed Saquon, and then we signed Devontae Parker. It's such a minimal signing, and we're extending players. He's taking care of business. He knows what he's doing, obviously. But yeah, I'm excited to see, because like you mentioned, we'll get a better idea of the cap as we get further into this thing and understand how much exact cap space that you do have remaining. But probably, I mean, rough math-ish, you're somewhere in the 20s, and that's still enough to do things with. So I'm excited to see where he goes.
Albert Pastrana dropping 5 more. Wagner led Seattle in tackles when the young cores learning from him would be priceless, I mean, I don't disagree. Is it a 1-year deal for Wagner? If you wanted to go ahead and get him, that's kind of the big question there. I like Terrence Perry dropping another 10, saying, let's go! Go Birds. Boy. Let's go, baby. If I would have told you, Josh, that literally 1 week ago, you are guaranteed to have Saquon Barkley, Bryce Huff, and CJ Gardner-Johnson, we would have all said, executive of the year, Howie Roseman. Like, I mean, that is, and not with the most cap space. There are 9 other football teams that have more cap space than the Eagles did going into the 2 today. And there were teams going for Saquon Barkley and teams going for Bryce Huff who probably offered more money. I mean, the Houston Texans just gave Danielle Hunter a massive contract, and they were reportedly very much in on getting Saquon Barkley. And obviously, you're beating out the Tennessee Titans at a lot of money for CJ Gardner-Johnson. I think there is definitely a Jalen Hurts Eagles culture factor to these 3 players wanting to come to Philadelphia, because, listen, Houston's building something, but they're building. The Tennessee Titans are a complete rebuild. I mean, some of these other teams that have money, the Chicago Bears, they're going to get a quarterback, but, they're years away from being even competitive in their own division. And Philadelphia is very much in win-now mode, but with the ability to extend the current, can't call it a dynasty because you haven't won one yet with the current group, but you know what I'm saying, the dynasty of being an NFC perennial favorite a couple years down the road with all these players, young and inked, with draft picks and continued cap space.
Yeah. He's surprising. It shouldn't be too shocking because it's Howie Roseman, and we know how he works. And sometimes it's the craziest of things, and you're like, well, okay, there he went. But it's, the Saquon Barkley one was totally shocking, because to go to running back and pay that amount of money. But hey, there's there's bits of it because of the rumored reports and saying like, oh, he was interested in name your running back in the draft,
right?
Christian McCaffrey. He was interested, apparently last season even was interested in Bijan Robinson. Now, if you have the option between Jalen Carter and Bijan, I still think Howie would have taken Jalen Carter, even if Bijan was available at 9. But I'm just saying there was reports of that. And then we've also seen in free agency, we've also seen trade deadline, rumored reports, maybe going to trade for Derrick Henry. who knows how many of those are legit, but it's like, okay, if you start adding these things up, okay, there's a difference between a 3-down back and getting someone like a Saquon Barkley. So he said, hey, you know what? We're going to go get him. And obviously he did that. But I think you're seeing too, he sees that there's blatant holes that everyone else recognizes as well, but you got your defensive coordinator, like we talked about, and go give him the pieces to be successful. And that's what makes Howie Roseman so great. You have your options here at the coaching position that you really wanted. Now go get these guys. And to the point of Zara here saying drafting linebackers is only smart if there's a good coach to train them. It's a fair point that coaching was not great last year in a number of areas, including the positional coaches, but it's definitely improved. It's upskilled. Like you got Bobby King, even if we want to talk about linebackers, you got Bobby King from Tennessee. Like he's done a fairly good job. So it's a definite improvement from what it was previously. And so, I like the idea. You do hopefully draft someone if you want to go the youth at that route. But again, I don't mind it if you want to add a few veterans here. But ultimately, this thing needs to be built long-term. And I think that Howie sees that. And it sounds like he's also maybe had like similar conversations with Nick Sirianni, based on the whole, you remember how he was saying, we had conversations about basically like the guys that we draft, we should play, because Sirianni's comment is we're going to just play whoever gives us the best chance to win. But there's kind of like a fine line on that, because Howie's going like, hey, look, there's some guys that I believe in and you're just not getting them out there on the field. So I think it's also going to be a difference there. Even the guys that we draft this season, you'll probably see them get on the field more frequently than we've seen some rookies in the past. So can't hurt necessarily.
Keep an eye on, obviously, them going and making some more moves here. They're not done. And whether that's going to be for a linebacker, whether that's a Josh Sweat or Son Reddick trade, whether that's getting another safety, Justin Simmons, Cam Curl. I mean, there's still options out there. And there have been reports that the Eagles could want to maybe double dip in terms of the safety market. That remains to be seen. I saw a couple of comments asking about the situation of Josh Sweat and obviously Hassan Reddick. There's been no Hassan Reddick reports, by the way, like zero the past 2 days. There's been no updates
It's crazy, really.
Like zero. There have been Josh Sweat reports. Obviously, he went ahead and posted on his Instagram saying, I'm going to miss you all very much, which indicated he was going to be traded, but that was at like 9 a.m. this morning, and then we haven't heard anything else since. We did see, at least I did, a report saying that they could cut Josh Sweat if they can't find a trade partner. That seems a little bit of a surprise to me.
Yeah, that's wild.
Make him play underneath his current contract. I think so. It would be very interesting to see them do that, but that would tell you that they are seemingly done with Josh Sweat in terms of believing in he's a long-term option. Like, maybe it's the injuries, the knees, whatever it is, but that is something to very much to keep an eye on. And then the newest report, which I think is wild, is Justin Fields as a backup for, Jalen Hurts, because Justin Fields, no one wants him right now. Obviously, you saw Mac Jones be traded to the Jaguars for a 6th-round draft pick, so what's his actual value? He's only due about $3 million this year before going into the final year, or potentially a 5th-year option. Any interest in Justin Fields as quarterback too? I say no, because it's Philadelphia, and one bad Hurts game in WIP has 6 callers waiting, or 60 callers waiting to claim that Justin Fields is the future. I'm very much out on that.
Yeah. We get a ton of speculation rumors, obviously.
Sure.
I get it, the whole, quarterback factory and everyone wanting to talk about the potential, the fit of the offense, Jalen Hurts, and
sure.
Heck, last offseason, I know that you remember it because we both got it in every one of our videos just about, but you'd get 2 or 3 Bears fans who would comment, Justin Fields is better than Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts is just a lesser version of Justin Fields and all these other things, but now there's not a market for him. So, there's linkages and trying to do everything else, but I don't know. I'm not for it either, because again, the whole conversation of you bring in a quarterback who, like, what's he going to bring value-wise to Jalen? Like, if I'm investing $255 to Jalen, the only reason I'm interested in any backup is to provide some value to Jalen Hurts and to help him with game prep and film and be that veteran who is, a non-threatening veteran like James Palmer and others had said earlier today. Yeah. That's who you bring in. So yeah, I'm out on that. It's fun to link them. And I think that's sometimes what the reporters do, or even agents like kind of throw in a little bit like, oh, hey, I think the Eagles, they might be an interest just to try to boost some stock there. But it seems crazy to me. I can't see that. Shout out to Family YouTube though. Says I'm crying. I don't know if that's actually legit crying. I'm excited, but I'm crying. Says I love that I can rock my CJ Gardner-Johnson jersey without question. Thank you guys for breaking the news. Appreciate that. Yes.
Still got one. Still got one. Well
glad
done.
That you didn't burn it or rip it, but you can wear it with pride. So there you go.
Brent, we didn't read this one, but we were mentioning it. What do you think about Justin Fields as a backup to Hurts? Josh said it just right. You gave too much money to Jalen Hurts to even consider Justin Fields. And the problem with the Justin Fields thing, like just right off the bat, you go, oh, well, quarterback factory and just in case, but you only have him for a year. So unless you're literally going to sign him for 1 year, only to be injury resistance for Jalen Hurts, it just doesn't make sense. Because, really what you'd want to do is trade for Justin Fields, give him like a 6th-round draft pick, sign him to a very cheap contract, and make him be a backup and make him do the Jordan Love thing. Make him sit 3 years, 2 years. And then 2 years down the line, if there was ever a case where Hurts was struggling or Hurts clearly wasn't the guy, which none of us think is going to happen, then you'd slide in Justin Fields or you'd trade him away like the Patriots did with Jimmy Garoppolo and Tom Brady. But because he's on a 1-year contract right now, some team is going to give him a deal eventually, probably after the draft, because obviously people are going to try to go ahead and get this crazy, list of quarterbacks in this draft. I just don't see it happening for Philadelphia. It just doesn't make a lot of sense.
No, it really doesn't. Again, to your point, it's surely another. I've been surprised too. Like you would think that, I know there's a dwindling market because you start saying, oh, the Raiders got a guy in Minshew, which tells you the value of what teams think of Justin Fields. Also, if you're going to say like, hey, we're going to sign a Minshew for that value,
it's not good.
But Denver, I figured, what the heck? You just float someone out there. I know they're trying to purge also and, figure some things out. So maybe it's like, let's not do a project who's, unsure. Let's just go a different route. And they've got all the cap space issues, which you'd have to re-up with Justin Fields. So I get if there's a little bit of a steer clear, but still it feels like there would be some organization out there would say, heck yeah, you want me to give you a 6th-round pick, 5th-round pick for him? Like that's the going rate now for him. Sure, I'll take a chance on it. But surprising he's staying put. Wouldn't be super at this point because it's taken a little bit longer on a 1st-round pick of certainly a guy like a Justin Fields that you just hang on to him, honestly. If you're Chicago, you're not getting enough value. It seems like you just say, well, you know what the heck, we'll just keep him. If it works out, great. If it doesn't, we'll, trade him again. Because I can't imagine, even if you hold on to him for another season or at least half a season, and you try to deal him at the deadline, that you could at least get like a 6th-round pick for him. So surely they'll find something. I'm out on it for Philly on that side.
I am too.
But I think they believe in Tanner McKee, quite honestly. Like I wouldn't be shocked if he is QB2. I would like to get a veteran, just to my point earlier about like someone to help groom Jalen. Just be that extra voice, in his ear. But on that side still, like it wouldn't totally shock me if you said, hey, Tanner McKee is officially QB2 at this point, because they do really like him. So we'll see on that.
Michael Flowers says, I'm still waiting for an answered off-ball linebacker to go with Dean. I think you're going to wait till the draft unless they trade for somebody, and there are rumors of that. We showed that a little bit earlier. Andrew says, sign Simmons, have him play free safety, and CJ Gardner-Johnson next, or a nickel, sorry. All of us would be fine with that. There isn't anybody who would be against that. Again, there was the Diana Rossini tweet a couple of minutes ago, basically saying that the Tennessee Titans are targeting, Josh, corrected me on the word there, they're not signing, targeting all-pro safety Justin Simmons. They wanted CJ Gardner-Johnson, but Philly scooped him up, so we're keeping an eye on this. And obviously, if there is more happening tonight, we will go live, because that's exactly what we do, is we make sure we are the first people live, and have been the first people live for a while now when it comes to the big Philadelphia Eagles news, and this is obviously one of the bigger ones in terms of what is going on with the Philadelphia Eagles, making sure that there isn't any other news that is happening right now as we continue to go ahead and rock with the comments. You see us both looking down. We're looking at Twitter because that's where we get most of our news from. Jeremy Weaver says, wait till Sanders is cut. He revives PSU duo with Saquon on a cheap 1-year deal. That'd be very interesting. Trade Sweat to the Bears for a 4th, sign Fuller, flyer on Tre'Davious White. I think a 4th is probably exactly what you could actually get for Josh Sweat. I think that is the realistic asking price. It might have dropped to a 5th based on the fact he's not been traded yet.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I'm almost wondering if it's a 5th. I would hate it, but yeah, just with the price there, and you look at it like a Brian Burns was a 2nd and a 5th. Mm-hmm. Hassan Reddick was originally a 2nd and a 5th. Now I'm kind of like a 3rd, maybe. Like it's dwindling probably for him as well. So, yeah, that's about where it is. Again, you could get something, or even if it's just draft capital, like we talked about, and how using it to trade up. Like for example, if you're at 22 and you get whatever it is, if you're trading Haas, you maybe get a 2nd rounder or it's a 3rd rounder, whatever, you kind of package that and move up in the 1st round. If there's someone that he really likes, it's not the worst thing in the world either. But yeah, that does feel kind of like it's the going rate in a sense. But shout out to Maxwell too, says, do you think Isaiah Rodgers could make an impact next season if Bradbury stinks up the place too bad?
I think he's going to make an impact regardless.
Yeah, I do too. We talked about the rust factor. And yes, we're seeing the number of comments here. Willie Gay to the Saints. Thank you, Kurt. Willie Gay has gone to the Saints, but
okay. So much for that.
That's I think who was that? That was why am I drawing a blank? It was the Bleacher Report dude. Why am I drawing a blank on his name?
Is it Ari?
Schultz,
who is the Bleacher Report guy? Is it Jordan Schultz? I thought Jordan Schultz is the Athletic.
I think it's Jordan Schultz. Yeah, okay. Whoever it is, that's where I saw it first. So yes, thank you. But no, I mean, going back to just the comment there, Isaiah Rodgers, I think that he definitely can have a great impact. And honestly, to me, it's just more of if he has rust. If there's a rust factor, it might be slower to get him on board. But if he just comes into camp, like, I'd probably say that, I mean, just based on, I know it's recency bias. I know Isaiah Rodgers didn't play at all, but like based on what we saw from James Bradberry, I know you floated the notion out there that he should be improved because you can't get much worse, but like he could be drastically improved. And that would be great because you're going to have better safety play behind you. But still, I would not put it past Isaiah Rodgers, whether he plays a little bit of slot, he plays a little bit outside. There's some hybrid there. And let's not forget about Kelee Ringo or, who you draft, another guy that you bring in there. So there's some more depth here as you get going. And, I'm excited to see what they do. I really still, so far, I would say, I guess I'm curious to get your take on this as well. But so far, the moves that we've made, there's still plenty more to come. But has it shifted your thought at all about what you'd want the Eagles to do with that first round selection?
Obviously you see a super chat like Zara just dropped. What do you guys think we'll do at linebacker? And linebacker makes sense, but you and I've talked about this multiple times, whether it's this or our normal Wednesday live show. There just isn't a first round linebacker, right? Micah Parsons, coming out of Penn State, was like the first round middle linebacker of the past, 10 years. I mean, he was like the guy that everyone wanted, besides like a Devin White, Devin Bush were also names in there as well. I think it's going to be corner. I think you have to do it because of Darius Slay's age. Darius Slay can still play. He can't play at all pro or a Pro Bowl level. I mean, it's just a simple fact of life. And maybe he has one more great year left in him, but he probably has one or two more good years left in him. Mainly one. I think after this year, the Eagles will hop off. But you need to have that cornerback ready to go. The Eagles clearly have shown that having elite cornerbacks is what they want to do after not doing it seemingly for so long. I think back to Asante Samuel was one of the last ones that they actually, paid a lot of money to that actually worked out. Byron Maxwell obviously didn't. But I really think cornerback is where they are going to go. Pass rusher is a possibility if you were to lose Sweat and Reddick, which we'll cover that trade the second that it happens. So hit your notification bell and sub down below right now. But I do think that cornerback, because there's 4 really, really good ones in the first round, and that guy out of Toledo, I think it's Quinyon Mitchell. I'm blanking on the name right now, though. He had probably one of the better, between running his 40, between the deadlift, between seeing what his 3-cone shuttle was. I think he had one of the most impressive combines.
He's a beast.
And I think he's massive, too. He's a really tall, lengthy corner. He's exactly what you want. I think he's a real target. And we say it all the time. Like, we say it 100% of the time. This is a very different draft than what you've seen in previous years. You're going to have 5 quarterbacks in the first 5 picks. I think it's going to be 5. I think Bo Nix, moves up. McCarthy is going to be there. That means there are 5 non-quarterback players who fall in the draft. And you're at 22. You go up to 12, you're getting a top 10 player. You go up to 15, you're probably getting a top 10 player. You got to think about this, right? That's not a quarterback. So I really think corner is going to be the option. I think they trade up, they package some picks. They have so many later round picks and 2 second-round draft picks and whatever they get for Sweat and Reddick. So I definitely think that it's going to be cornerback.
I hope so too. I'm right there with you. Quinyon Mitchell is my number 1. He's remained that way. Like you said, he only helped himself after the combine. I mean, my gosh, this dude is like the 4.33 speed. He's got the strength of a linebacker. I mean, like, what was it, 20-something reps on the bench press? He had a 505 squat that he was doing the other day just for fun. I mean, he just made it look effortless. I know Jalen and Saquon just laugh at that way. But, he's a cornerback here. And like you talked about, too, like he's a long, rangy dude who's got plenty of ball hawking ability. You go look at the tape. He had 4 pick sixes or 2 in one game, but I think 4 in total. So get him on the defense. Plus, it's also, again, you can get hyped up about someone who's crazy athletic and all this other stuff, but like it's also really scheme fit too. This guy did not play a lot of press coverage. Like the only knock that I can see consistent on him from a bunch of different scouting reports is he just didn't play a whole lot of press coverage. And maybe he can, but like in a Fangio scheme, he's not going to be asked to do that. Like it's going to be off ball coverage, or it's going to be a little bit off zone. And he's got that ability because he breaks on the ball really well and he's a ball hawk. So it hasn't changed. You can tell it hasn't changed my thought theory. I'm going to say still it's Quinyon Mitchell is the number 1 target for me for the Eagles. And maybe, again, if there's any news breaking for Josh Sweat, Hassan Reddick, we will be first to go live, let you know. And who knows, that could be parlayed into a Quinyon Mitchell eventually with draft selection. So we'll see.
and we'll be live for the draft. We had thousands of people watching last year, even more projected this year. It's going to be a bunch of fun. We're going to wrap up here in a second. We'll get to the final couple of super chats. Bobby Bienemey, I think. Nolan Smith next to Dean and a vet backup. I don't know if Nolan's ready to play true off-ball linebacker. I know they did it a little bit last year. That seemed a little more Matt Patricia than we'd like. But I want Nolan Smith rushing the passer. I want him rushing the passer. I think he can do that.
Yeah, I love Nolan, but I'm with you. He needs to rush the passer, and his run-stopping ability is underrated. I know some people talk about it. It's very underrated. Going back and watching, especially because I was curious, right? Like whenever Howie said Nolan played really well in the playoff game, and I was like, okay, I'm interested. So I went back and watched it, and pass rush is still, he's got like one move. So he needs to develop there. He's raw. He needs to do something, improve on that side. But in terms of run blocking, it's insane. I mean, the run support, the run defense, like his ability is really good to read most of the time. Like he was usually in the right hole. He's getting some stops, making plays. His whole tripping thing, if you remember, was a weird dynamic because he's trying to run and stick out his leg. But, it was okay, whatever. But, like, still, I think there's a lot of potential. It with the athleticism. So I want to see him out there. Definitely not next to Dean. But get him some snaps. Don't know that I'm ready necessarily, but maybe Howie thinks I'm not really necessarily ready to say, let's start him in that situation. Yeah. But he needs to get, I don't know what you want to say, like, play 30%, 40%, like basically what Bryce Huff played, the number of snaps. He was kind of situational pass rusher for the Jets. That's kind of what Nolan Smith needs to be for the Eagles. You need to get him out there when you need a pass rush, but you got to develop him a little bit. So I'm hoping for big things. He also had a shoulder procedure, which I kind of spaced on, but maybe the shoulder's okay. That was the other potential concern, but maybe we shouldn't be concerned at this point. So
Alexander Harris wrapping us up here. He says, just because I donated Thomas and not Josh, so he gets 5 more for Josh. All love. Oh, we appreciate that.
I appreciate that. That means a lot.
We appreciate you guys. I mean, we had 2,000 comments, obviously 3,000 people, up to 4,000 watching at the peak of this one. If you missed it, we're going to replay it. You obviously will see it on both of our channels, break it all down in the coming days, and just know that the Eagles aren't done. So if you haven't hit the notification bell, the second that it happens, we're jumping on with a live. And I think linebacker, maybe another safety could drop tonight. I know I'm going to be right by my phone, as Josh will as well. We're keeping an eye on Twitter, that way you don't have to. We're going to wrap things up as CJ Gardner-Johnson is officially a Philadelphia Eagle. For Josh Davis, I'm Thomas Mott. We're pumped. The Eagles defense just got a lot better, and I think we can sleep a lot better tonight knowing that that's the case. This has been the next live show in a list of a lot of them this week, but it's not going to be the last. We're excited for that.
There will be more.
See you guys.
Let's go. Go Birds.